What's happening? What's happening? Hope y'all are having a great day so far. I know I am. Pretty excited that I've rebranded a lot of stuff on my website and streamlined everything, and it's looking really good and it's popping off. I'm super happy that people are receiving it well, and there's various levels of membership, and I gave it interesting names, so I hope y'all like it. But yeah, please check that out at thedominanceacademy.com, and you can browse through that. And if you have any questions, just hit me up on email, thedominanceacademy@gmail.com. So I've got a little show for you about some information. It's gonna be an informational show. We're not gonna be talking about women and men and all that stuff. Oh shit! I should probably hold my mic a little closer. So yeah, so we're going to be talking about statistics. A little bit of information about BDSM, and to kind of help dispel some of the myths, and probably try to bring a little bit of light to what's going on in the lifestyle, and help you realize that there are a lot of people who are into this sort of thing. They're like a lot more than you might even care to admit. So I found a couple of websites that had gathered information from studies, and we'll be going over that. And the thing is, though, is that I wonder if BDSM wasn't seen as taboo, how many people would just be out and discussing what they're into, and and just taking it easy, and not really trying to hide it from everybody. I know that when I came out of the closet, so to speak, it shocked some people. They thought that there was something wrong with me. They made judgments like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. I don't know, but it was uh, it was interesting to see the reactions of some people. So you know, let's uh, let's get into this. But it would be interesting if people did not have their judgments, and you know that's just the way it was. But whatever. So we'll just start some music here. Found some cool jazzy beats, which I like. All right, hope that's not too loud. All right, so let's get into some of these statistics. So there was this one study. It was a study. It was done with an independent survey with more than 12,700 individuals, and it was the largest study so far of BDSM ever, with a focus on the U.S. population. All right, so we look into some of the quick facts that this came up with, and it says here that 86% of Americans have either tried BDSM at least once or expressed an interest to do so. So 42% had done BDSM, and 44% expressed interest, to total 86%. Germany is the most active BDSM country, where 47% have tried it. US is the third. So it goes Germany, then Brazil, then the US. The first BDSM experience on average is had at the age of 22 years old. Frequent BDSM participants are on average 5 years younger compared to other sexually active adults. People who've tried BDSM report having lost their virginity on average 2 years earlier, at age 15, than the rest of the population, which is at 17%. I'm gonna just try a different beat here. All right, there we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so let's see here. Men, 59.6%, reported fantasizing about dominating someone, significantly more than women, which was 46%. So in the US, of the 12,700 people, 46% of women in that study said that they were interested in dominating someone. All right, so that's just to let you know that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are dominant women. Okay, so the practice of doing something, of playing a role, doesn't necessarily mean that person is that way. Okay, so you could have an average guy who isn't a dominant guy, but then in the bedroom, he likes to play the role of a dominant guy. Okay, so this is not a 24/7 dynamic type person. Okay, for someone like myself, my girlfriend and I, we're in a 24/7 dynamic. So we are living our roles day in and day out. Whereas there's tons of couples who don't have that. They just have a regular relationship. Then when the bedroom door closes, they, put their hats on, they assume their role. Women, 64.6% reported fantasizing about being dominated significantly more than men, which was 53%. So that tells you that over half of women, 64.6%, reported fantasizing about being dominated. Of that, 12,700. Active BDSM participants have significantly higher median household income of $70,000 compared to the rest of the population, which was $67,500. Whites are 34% likely more to engage or be interested in BDSM compared to other ethnicities. And it says here 26.5% of those that have tried BDSM report being bisexual, 6.6 times higher in the general population. And so it says here, have you ever tried BDSM? And of the 12,000, it says 42.4% said yes, 57.6% said no. So there's quite a lot of people who have interest. Okay, so like just having an interest, right? There's practicing and then there's interest. So those who have practiced and those who have interest, the ones that have interest was 77%. That is a lot. That is a lot of people who have just a general interest in this sort of thing. Okay. The least kinky countries, right? So the top three were Germany, Brazil, and USA, followed by Sweden and Spain and the UK. The least kinky places are Greece at 13%, Italy at 19%, and France at 23%. So the average age of first BDSM experiences was 22 and a half years old. The average age of the first BDSM fantasy was 19 years old. Frequent BDSM participants are on average 5 years younger compared to those to the other sexually active adults. People who have tried BDSM report having lost virginity on average 2 years earlier. All right, here's some gender statistics. Men, 59.6% reported fantasizing about dominating someone. Women, 64.6% reported fantasizing about being dominated. Men, 9.5% reported a desire to engage in sadism. Okay, so this is applying pain to someone else. Women, 27.8% reported a desire to engage in masochism, receiving pain. So almost 30% of women enjoy, or they've at least fantasized, having a desire to receive pain. Fetishism was found to be an interest for 40% of men and 47% of women. So for those of you who don't know what a fetish is anything, and it's usually a non-sexual thing, like a non-sexual body part or an object that is highly sexualized and is needed in order for that person to get off. So someone who has a foot fetish has to engage with their feet or someone else's feet in order to have an orgasm. All right. And there is tons of fetishes. I mean, just look them up. And some of them are really wild. Like I forget what it's called, but like people out there have asphalt, like pavement fetishes. So like they can't get off unless they're having sex on the ground of a parking garage or something along those lines. But there's some crazy, crazy wild fetishes out there. All right, sexuality. All right, of those that have tried BDSM at least once, only 63% reported to be exclusively heterosexual, 26% bisexual, 3% homosexual, and other is 6%. So the vast majority of people who engage in BDSM are heterosexual. There's income stats. It says 34% are 100,000 and over. the next highest stat would be 16%. I'm sorry, 20,000, which is 14%, and 40,000 to 60,000 is 16.4%. Most are white. So it says whites are 34% more likely to engage in or be interested in BDSM compared to other ethnicities. And then black or African American, followed by Hispanics. Asians were at 7.6, and then follows, African American and Hispanic. But most applicants are white in that study, anyways. So reasons why people like BDSM. So they asked the participants, the 12,700 people, the reasons why they were drawn into BDSM. And while some view it as a mere kink or fetish, there's substantial body of scientific evidence that delves into the deeper reasons why people are drawn into this lifestyle. And hopefully with this information spreading, it'll help people understand that it's not a psychological issue. Okay, it was seen as a as a mental disorder. I think it was like in the early 1900s or something like that, and then it was removed as a disorder, I think in 2013 or 2009, something like that. Okay, so let's look at some of the benefits from a scientific perspective. So number one is neurological rewards. At the heart of BDSM is the interplay between pain and pleasure. When engaged in these activities, the body can release endorphins and dopamine, as well as adrenaline, our natural painkillers and pleasure chemicals. This biochemical response can lead to states of euphoria, often referred to as subspace for submissives or top space for dominants. And that is a trance-like state that many in the BDSM community cherish and they seek after. Some people, which I've heard, it's a small percentage, they become addicted to subspace. And because it's really, really intoxicating, and they seek after it. And when it becomes an addiction, that's like any addiction, it can become a problem. But for most players, they don't do this. They don't seek out subspace. Just when it happens, it's something wonderful. And for subs, I've heard that it's like being high on a drug, but like no other drug that's actually out there. It's more like an out-of-body experience where you lose sense of time, space, identity, and it's extremely powerful, extremely powerful. Top space or dom space, I've heard of, but I have yet to experience it myself. I don't know what it's talking about, so I don't lose sense of self, because I think that it's really important as a dom and as a leader to be able to maintain a clear mind. So as you don't get carried away, so you don't hurt somebody or lose track, or you say you're doing breath play or anything like that, and you want to be on top of things. You want to be able to observe the subtle changes in the person you're playing with, so you don't make any mistakes or cause any injury. So that's like some of the neurological rewards. And of those neurological rewards, like I've mentioned before, people who practice BDSM, it is shown that they have less stress. Okay. And I can tell you from my own experience, if my girl has had a bad day, she will come home, and before she comes home, she will ask me for a spanking. And like that means I know she's looking for some kind of relaxation. She's looking for some kind of release. And, she'll come home, we'll do a thing, we'll relax, take a shower, that sort of thing. She'll put on something that's like comfortable and revealing, maybe just a t-shirt or whatever. And she'll either come over my lap, or she'll get into a position that's comfortable, and I'll do a ramping up sort of spanking. And I'll go into a video in the membership about how to actually engage in proper spanking. It's not just, you just don't start hauling off on their ass. That's not how it works. You actually have a tempo where you build and then drop and then plateau, build, drop slightly, plateau, and you keep doing this up and up and up. And this slowly allows these biochemicals to be released, and the person adapts. And in gaining the dopamine and the endorphins and the adrenaline, this releases the cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and the stress levels go down. And then you can slowly bring them back down, and then you have a little bit of aftercare, some holding, and depending on how far you take it will determine how much involved your aftercare is. If it's something that involves a big emotional release and there's crying or whatever, then the aftercare has to be on a 1-to-1 ratio with that. You're not just gonna be like, hey, here, have a little piece of chocolate, you'll be fine, right? So you have to, as a dom, you have to kind of gauge and understand your sub or your woman and know what is best for them, so that they can come back down to earth and feel settled and comfortable and safe, and come back into their body, so to speak, and just kind of like reconnect with themselves in that moment, and they're much more relaxed after that. And it's an interesting thing, and some people, they like to come home and have a drink as their means of doing that, and that's fine, I guess, but that's really just numbing the situation. Really, that's just numbing you from your stress instead of releasing your stress. I like the spanking. Other good examples, if you're not into BDSM, is to just exercise, do something physical, and get those endorphins going and dopamine release and adrenaline in another fashion. Okay, so moving on here, psychological fulfillment. All right, so beyond the physical, BDSM offers profound psychological experiences. It allows participants to explore power dynamics, trust, vulnerability, and even confront past traumas in a controlled environment. For some, it's a therapeutic way to reclaim control or process certain emotions. And with that said, there's a growing number of therapists who, within controlled bounds and observation, they recommend many of their patients to engage in BDSM with their partners, or to seek out a dom who can facilitate these things, or a sub that can facilitate these things. So there's tremendous psychological aspects to BDSM, and I would say that is more of an important aspect of BDSM than the physical. The physical just gets the most eyes because it's sensational. It's like, oh my God, they're putting strange things in their butt, they're hitting each other with these things, they're being shocked or whatever. So it's like very sensational to look at. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But the amount of that happening versus the amount of psychological things happening is vastly different in terms of weight and frequency. So in a BDSM relationship, there's going to be a lot more psychological things happening that are very subtle, that are having to be maintained, versus the amount of times that there's a flogging happening. If you look at it, say, during a week, all right? And these things can lead to, like what it says, profound psychological experiences where you are dealing with traumas, you're dealing with trust, you're dealing with vulnerability. And no doubt, if done properly and led in the right kind of way, it can lead to your sub opening up more and vulnerability happening even more, which in turn requires you to pay attention more and to lead more. But it becomes a really powerful means of creating a steady and very strong bond. Moving on here, number 3, exploration of sensations. The world of BDSM offers a plethora of tools and toys designed to heighten sensations, whether it's the restrictive embrace of bondage tape, the tantalizing pinch of nipple clamps, or the electrifying touch of electro toys. These instruments amplify sensory experiences, making every touch, tug, or tickle all the more intense. And I like sensory play. Sensory play can be anything that engages the 5 senses or reduces the 5 senses. So going to, say, like one of those places where they sell construction equipment and gear, we can buy like the hyper yellow vests and things like that. Getting headphones like this for operating a jackhammer, they 100% cut out sound. You can't hear anything when you put these on, like 100% noise canceling headphones. And they're big ones like this, they don't go inside your ear. So you can get those to remove the sense of hearing. Of course, you can use blindfolds to cut out the sense of sight. Those are real common ones. And when you cut out one sense, it makes the others more more sensitive. Okay, so you cut out the ears, cut out the eyes, and then your sense of touch, the sense of smell, and the sense of taste become heightened. All right, and one of my favorite toys is the oh shit, it's called a Wartenberg wheel. It's called a Wartenberg wheel. And if you give me a second, I will just grab that really quick and I can show you guys. So just bear with me for just one moment and I'll show it to you. All right, so I just grabbed a couple of sensory toys here that are some of my favorites. So the Wartenberg wheel is this guy here, okay? You can see that. And it was originally a medical tool for diagnosing nerve sensitivity. So like, let's say somebody had an injury and then they had surgery or something like that, and they were testing to see if the person was able to recover well and have sensitivity, say in their foot or something like that. They would take this tool and roll it over the skin, and it's got these little spikes. They're not sharp enough to actually puncture the skin, but they can certainly leave indentations. I'm sure if you press hard enough, yeah, it could puncture the skin, but you don't really use it that much. And it doesn't take much pressure at all to really ignite the nerves on the skin. So there's this one here, and it only has one wheel. So if you have one wheel on here, it's going to be more it's going to offer more pain, I guess. And then there's other versions like this, okay, where it has lots of wheels. All right, so this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Wartenberg wheels on here, and so the force is spread out over a wider area, so it produces a different feeling. Okay, I don't know, it actually kind of feels good, like when it's all spread out like this. And I've seen like really wide ones where there's like 20 of those wheels on there. And who knows, maybe it could be actually good for circulation and so on. Real basic one here is wooden clothespins. Like you can get like a pack of 50 of these for like $3 on Amazon. And these are great for tons of areas of the body. You can pinch different nipples, areas of skin around the breast, labia, toes, the webbing in between your fingers, nostrils, anything really that can be pinched. This is good. However, if you're going to use these, make sure that you go on gently, okay? And then after they're on for a little while, and I wouldn't go any further than 30 minutes. For me, it's usually less than 30 minutes, but I wouldn't go over 30 minutes. Don't quickly remove it, okay? Make sure you have a good grip on here so it doesn't actually slip out and snap down on their skin. You want to have it so you have a good grip, and you slowly release pressure on whatever it was, because there's a huge release when it comes from having that pain release from the body, and it can hurt and also feel good at the same time. So just make sure that you don't quickly undo it, you undo it slowly. All right. And suction is another interesting sensory toy. So here's an example of a suction toy, and this is a manual one. They also have ones where you can attach a hose on the end, and there's like a little rubber valve, and like a plunger, and you just squeeze, and it sucks the air out. And there's pumps of all sorts, and it can be used for vaginal pumps. There's dick pumps, there's breast pumps, there's nipple pumps. This one, the small one here, this can be used on nipples, this can be used on the clit, and or any other part of the body. And there's therapeutic versions of this too, if you know about cupping. All right, cupping's an ancient practice used all throughout China and Japan, I believe. And they use these glass like cups, and they stick them all over your body and suck the air out with a little gun. and it draws blood up to the surface. Now, in terms of play, what that does by drawing blood up to the surface is that it increases the sensitivity of that body part. Okay, so again, with the same thing with suction, I would not go any further than 20 or 30 minutes because you don't want to damage any blood vessels or anything like that. Again, if you're using this, be mindful of looking at the color. Okay, it should stay red. If it gets dark red or purple, immediately remove the suction. Okay, just know that if you are using this, it's helpful to have moisture so you can like lick it or use a little bit of lube, and that creates a better suction. But this is another example of sensory toys. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that you can engage the skin when it comes to sensory play. I see I've got just a couple of comments here. Mathis are other. I don't know what that means. What's up, King Solo Power? Good to see you, man. By Mixtape, what's up, Coach? Just got the membership today. Asked my girl if she's into DS, and she says she's down. Appreciate the game. That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people who are into this. Just they're too afraid to say something about it, you know. But just take your time, and you know, I think I sent you an email. And, you know, so I appreciate you grabbing that. I sent you an email, write me back, and, you know, let's open a dialogue in case there's any questions or anything like that. And, you know, we'll just get that going on. Kevinism 7, what's up, man? Yep, New York in the place, man. I might be leaving New York come June. I might be moving to Florida, but New York is an amazing city, but it's so fucking dirty here. I just can't stand it. Like going on the train and then just looking over, and there's like this nice lady here. She's like reading her book, and then standing in the corner is some fucking crackhead jerking off with his hands in his pants. It's like, what the fuck? You know, I just want to go someplace nice, have a nice little meal, but there's like crazies and crackheads everywhere. So, anyways, and also the cold. But anyway, whatever. All right, so let's get back to the shit here. So exploring the sensations, we went over that. Power dynamics and control. So that's another area, you know, to talk about the scientific perspective here. Many are drawn to BDSM for the power dynamics tools. And so there's the power dynamics can be physical or mental. So they mentioned physical here. Chastity cages or ball gags are not just about physical sensations, but symbolize control and submission. They emphasize the deep trust between participants where one willingly relinquishes control and the other takes it. So this here is a huge aspect of BDSM, because really at the heart of it is you are negotiating a power exchange. Okay. And like I said, there's a wide range of it. It can be just in certain areas, or it can be the entire relationship. And the details in that are varied between couple to couple. All right, so there's a lot you can do there, and this is where things like rules come into play. This is where protocols come into play, rituals come into play, and there's so many things you can do that are small to bring about a power dynamic. All right, or to widen the power gap. All right, so for example, one is say something that I use in my relationship is that my name is never used. It's never ever used, except in say like an emergency situation, or if we're in a situation where we're with other people who don't know that we are in a dynamic, right? Because you don't ever want to subject other people to your dynamic, because frankly you don't have their consent. All right, so she's not gonna be with my family and call me daddy or call me sir. Okay, like, because that's gonna make them feel weird, and they didn't have any consent to being part of our situation. So in places like that, that's when the title is not used. But within the confines of a relationship, I've never heard my name. And I think the only time I've ever heard it was when we were visiting my mother, and you know, my girl used my name, and that was it. It was actually very weird to hear it, and it was weird for her to say it. So, but anyway, so an easy way is to just establish that only titles are to be used, say, in private, okay, or in places where you can use it freely. Another one is like, let's say your girl wants to talk to you about something, or you want to talk to your girl about something. Instead of just sitting down across from each other or next to each other on the couch, say, come over here and sit on my lap. All right, because that's something that you would do for a child. Okay, and child to parent, there is an obvious power dynamic. Okay, there is a shift, there's a difference between power. So when you do something like that, it establishes a subtle power dynamic where, like, I'm the one who's in control and you're coming to sit on my lap, and now you can open up, you can talk to me. But it establishes just a different shift in the mind. Okay, and of course, when it comes to establishing certain types of punishment, right? Like if you say, go sit in the corner and don't say anything for the next 20 minutes, that's something that you would only tell a child to do. And of course, all of these things are agreed upon. So it is known that this is a possibility as a potential outcome sometime in the future, long before it actually ever happens. So, when you're talking about, rules and punishments and rewards and all that good stuff, that stuff has to be established beforehand. You do not want to come out the gate or surprise them with some sort of behavior, some sort of consequence, say, if we're talking in that context, and it's something they've never discussed before, okay? Because that's violating their consent, and that's something you don't want to do. So it's much better if you have a good knowledge of your land and the fencing around it, of where you're allowed to operate. And then once you have that established, now you have free reign to kind of go and do whatever you want, as long as it stays within those boundaries. Okay, because everybody has their boundaries. All right, just because you're the dom does not mean the sub has no boundaries. They're human first before they're a sub. So, have to understand like what works for them and what doesn't. Okay, and so, like, for just an example, like when it comes to speech, for some reason, and I think it has something to do with her past, like my woman, she just like the word stupid is a red light for her. All right, that a red light is an extreme no. All right, do not pass. So I'm not free to call her stupid. I can call her dumb. I can call her an idiot. I can call her moronic. I can call her a dumb whore, but I can't call her a stupid whore. So for some reason, just the word stupid is very triggering for her. So it's understanding these things. And then as an aside, if I wanted to understand that better and perhaps break that down so it was no longer for a trigger for her, I wouldn't just use it, okay, like willingly. It would be a separate discussion to figure out where that trigger came from. Why is that now a red light? Why is that something that's harmful? And then we can really kind of slowly dig into that and understand and unearth the reasons why. All right, and this can be done for any boundary. Okay, so any boundary that you come across, and as it is with a lot of BDSM, as opposed to other relationships, is that we talk a lot. We talk a lot about this stuff, and it's with the understanding of opening things up, unearthing things, and getting to the truth so that we can grow as individuals. All right, so another one here, scientific perspective. All right, the last one here is variety and novelty. The human psyche is always curious, seeking new experiences. BDSM offers a smorgasbord of experiences, from the weightless adventures on sex swings to the rhythmic pleasures offered by sex machines. Each tool, whether it's a bondage board or spreader bars, introduces a new dimension to intimacy, keeping the experience fresh and exhilarating. In conclusion, the reason people like BDSM is multifaceted, rooted in both our biology and our psychology. It's a mix of power, trust, pain, and pleasure. As society becomes more open-minded, the misconceptions surrounding BDSM are slowly being dispelled, replaced by a genuine curiosity and respect for this intimate world. As with all forms of intimacy, the pillars of BDSM are consent, communication, and safety. So, that part about variety and novelty, that's another thing that I really like about BDSM, is that the nature of it is about exploration and feeling around, sometimes in the dark, and sometimes making mistakes, and sometimes coming to happy accidents and new discoveries. And it challenges one's openness, because if you find yourself resistant to a certain thing, be it physical or non-physical, if your ego can handle it, it's an opportunity to sit there and wonder, why is this an issue for me, instead of being like, I don't like it. right? Sit there and go, well, why is this bothering me? What is going on here? And when you come to the root of it, it still might be something you don't like, and that's okay, but now you have a greater understanding of why. Or you could challenge things and come to an understanding that your beliefs around a certain something was completely false, and it was just based on other triggers and other tethers that are tied to other bullshit. Okay. And and this variety and novelty can go through all sorts of toys. It can go through all sorts of verbal experiences, psychological experiences, emotional experiences, and these are things that you can facilitate. And one of the greatest ways you facilitate this is through scenes. Is through scene creation. And if you want to learn more about scene creation, that can be done through one of my programs. You can get on any of the tiers for the videos. I will be getting more and more into that because it's a large subject. But I do have a fantastic method for creating scenes, and it's like pretty much foolproof. And you can do anything you want as long as you follow through the flow chart. If you've ever seen a flow chart of like going, if you choose this, then you have this option and this option. And then if you choose this, you get this option, and this option. So I've created basically a flow chart for creating scenes. And within that, you can basically do whatever you want. And there's limitless options. And it's a lot of fun, especially if you have like an inclination towards, say, cosplay or acting, or if you have an interest in, say, like role-playing games or comics, like any of that, like that mind that's like into dreaming of, imaginary worlds or anything like that. Those people tend to get into scenes a lot easier. And then those who don't have that, it's an opportunity to challenge your lack of creativity, to then learn how to grow your creativity, and that's something that, that I can help you out with as well. So let's get back here to you guys. Yeah, Kevin, like this place is wild, man. Like New York City, man, it's the greatest city on the earth, but it's also, I think, the worst city on earth. It just goes hand in hand. It's just the way it is. So, I was looking at some other interesting stuff about BDSM, statistics and shit like that. And really, it just points to that people generally have interest in it than they're willing to actually say. So if you're, say, like looking at this statistics here, it says 65% of women have sexual fantasies about being dominated. Okay. This was a study from Sex and Psychology in 2014. 30 out of 55 sexual fantasies are considered very common. 53% of men have fantasies about being dominated sexually. 53% of men have fantasies about being dominated. Okay? 46% of women have fantasies about dominating someone else. 59% of men have fantasies about dominating someone else. 52% of women have fantasies about being tied up for sexual pleasure. Half of women, half of them. Okay, now half of women within that study, okay, that's not half of all women, but half of women within that study said they would like to be restrained. All right, so it would behoove you to get some education, learn about the different types of restraint. Okay, so and then there's a lot of good options. You've got rope, and there's many different types of rope. Okay, some rope is great for tying, so it'll hold its own knots, but it's terrible against the skin. And then there's other types of rope that are really great against the skin, but they're so soft and slippery that it doesn't hold a knot very well. So you have to learn certain knots for certain types of rope. All right. So if you've got like an engineer's type mind, a very technical kind of mind, if you're kind of nerdy, you might enjoy rope play. You might enjoy learning about shibari. I don't have the patience for that shit. Like unless you're really good. And even the best guys with rope, it takes time. And the sub just has to like stand there or sit there or lie there and wait for you to be done with your shit. And like that just gets on my nerves. I like faster forms of bondage. So like leather cuffs with buckles. All right. I like leather cuffs with buckles. I also enjoy Velcro. Velcro is very fast, The unfortunate side about Velcro is that it's not very sexy. The noise, like that sort of noise, it's not cool. Like, I don't like the sound, but I like the speed and efficiency of Velcro. And then the other interesting one is BDSM tape. Okay, and BDSM tape is this like very thin vinyl tape that is it's not adhering, but the friction between layers. So if you're like wrap it around, it will adhere to itself based on friction instead of having a sticky surface like regular tape. Okay, and this is really good. I like it a lot. And so you can do like a lot of creative things, and it's quite fast. Like, you can quickly just wrap this around and bind someone's arms or legs, or put them against something, and it's very, very quick. All right. And I will say this, as with for all types of bondage, make sure you get yourself a pair of medical shears. Okay, medical shears are the ones that have an L bend to them, and the ends of the shears are not pointed, they're rounded. All right, and this allows you to quickly and easily get under rope, get under tape, or a Velcro strap or whatever, and they're extremely sharp, and they will just cut through anything. All right, and that's if you're in an emergency situation where you notice something's going on wrong, there's discoloration in a limb, you see the wrong kind of distress in your sub's eyes, they say something, they give you a verbal indication that something's wrong. You want to be able to quickly eliminate whatever's causing that stress through the bondage as fast as possible. So make sure you have a set of shears on hand that are designed for cutting through these things. They're medical shears. You can get them in drugstores usually. I bought a couple of them on Amazon just so I have a couple on hand, not just one pair, but a couple, because one might be in my travel bag, one's going to be in my toy bin, that sort of thing. All right. So moving on here about sexual percentages here, 46% of men have fantasies about being tied up. All right. So a lot of you guys are not being honest, right? It's perfectly fine to be tied up. I don't particularly like it, but I do know DOMs that like it. Okay, so let me put this in context for you so that it can make sense. If I'm the DOM and I tell my sub to tie me up, who's dominating? I am. Because I'm the one giving orders and they follow everything that I say. So I'm the one who's in charge. They are topping, but not every top is the dominant position. You can have a submissive top because they've been ordered to top. Okay. You can be the one on the bottom, right? The one who's receiving something. Okay. And they are still the dominant one. Okay, so say there's a dom, D-O-M-M-E, a female dom, and she orders her male sub to fuck her. All right, is the guy in charge? No, he's being used as a tool. He is a slave. He's being told what to do. She's getting fucked, but she's still the one calling all the shots, and she's still the one who's in control. So don't confuse an action with a role. You can have, stereotypically submissive actions being taken on by a dom, and that doesn't change their role. All right, so just keep that in mind. So for you guys who are wanting, I say this because, for you guys who are wanting to be tied up, right? And you think, oh, I can't, express that fantasy because that'll make me less dominant. Not so. Because if you know that's a desire of yours, you express the desire and you say, hey, you do what you're told and bind my hands, you're still the one who's dominant. All right. Just because your hands are being bound does not make you any less dominant. If you like it, you like it. All right. 41% of women have fantasies about tying someone else for their sexual pleasure. 48% of men have fantasies about tying someone else for their sexual pleasure. 23% of women have fantasies about spanking or whipping someone. 43% of men have fantasies about spanking or whipping someone. 36% of women have fantasies about being spanked or whipped. 28% of men have fantasies about being spanked or whipped. So there's a lot There's a lot going on out here that people are just not admitting to. All right. Of 935 kinky people, they were asked what BDSM meant to them. 99% said pleasure. 97% said positive emotions. 91% said adventure, stress relief, and self-expression. And 90% said personal freedom. So, I mean, of course, they were already kinky people. So if they're into it, they're going to have, positive viewpoints. So it's kind of biased. But the point is that like people really enjoy living this lifestyle. And there's a lot of scientific evidence to show that there are, benefits to this, both physical and emotional and psychological benefits to these sort of things. All right. You're saying that gender roles don't necessarily directly correlate with being dominant or submissive. However, what you'd expect is more so the case. So 75% of women are into being submissive, while 33% are into, while 33% of men are into being submissive. 48% of men are into being dominant, while only 8% of women are into being dominant. And 18% and 16% were switches, okay, from men to women. Switches are people who can fluctuate between dominant and submissive. So, I bring up a lot of this stuff to say that if this is something you're into, do your research, okay? Do your research. Talk to your partner, talk to your woman, talk to whoever you're with. I don't give a fuck who you're with, but talk to them and see what they're into. See what they're into and get to know your own sexual interests and desires first. And if you feel like let's say you're writing them down and you start feeling shame or guilt around certain something, that's an indication that you should be asking yourself why that's there. Like, there should be nothing within your sexual preferences that you should feel insecure about, except if it involves children or animals. Those are two things that I do not condone at all. But if those two things are not involved, have at it. Own your own sexuality. Now, here's a sad statistic here. It says, when asked if they shared their sexual fantasies with their partner, 56% said yes and 44% no. All right. Those aren't very good statistics. That means to me that only about half of people are talking about this shit with the people that they're sexually engaged with. You should be talking about these things. And it just increases your opportunities. Okay. So if a woman is feeling comfortable around you, she's feeling vulnerable, she's feeling open because of who you are, then she's going to be more open to talking about her sexual fantasies. This comes from not judging her past, not judging what she's into, not judging what she's done or what she wants to do. What that does is it opens up the playing field for you to do more. So it's like if she had a certain sexual experience and you were like, oh, that's fucked up. She's not going to tell you about the other sexual experiences because now she's like, well, if I tell him anything, I don't know what he's going to find interesting and what he's going to judge. So I'm just going to keep it all to myself. And now you've just lost out on opportunities to grow your sexual experience with your woman. Right? They're really, really sensitive when it comes to judgment about their sexual experiences and their desires. So don't judge. You're only shooting yourself in the foot. When asked if they've engaged in bondage play such as blindfolds, restraints, paddles, etc., this is from the website Adam and Eve, 27% said yes, 73% said no. So that tells me that there's a lot of people thinking about this, but not enough engagement. According to Adam and Eve, when the respondents engaging in bondage play were asked if they used a safe word, 70% said yes, 83% said no. So this is no good. All right, you should absolutely have a designated safe word for your play. And I would suggest something that's 1 or 2 syllable words, okay? So nothing drawn out, and it should be something that is, comes from an odd context. Food is really easy, right? So your safe word could be apple, because if you're having sex, it's not often that the word apple is going to come into play with your sexual talk. All right. So fruit, vegetables, that's an easy one. It's an easy go-to. All right. So, I'm gonna drop the. Here's the thing. That's what it was. BDSM was classified as a mental illness in 1905 and remained so until 2013. It is unknown when people first started practicing BDSM for pleasure. I've seen ancient depictions in what is ancient Greek art, right? So they would make these urns, and then going around the urn, they would have like illustrations. And it wasn't a slave scene because like dicks were out and shit like that. And it was pictures of guys whipping each other with floggers. All right. So impact play has been a thing at least since ancient Greece. I'm thinking it goes back even further, because as long as we've understood that there's such a thing as pleasure and pain, there's been crossovers of pleasure and pain. So I think this is something that has been with human culture for an extremely long time. Yes. Okay. So look in here. It says 3 people have died from BDSM over the course of 25 years. The study in question analyzed 75 reported cases of deaths that occurred during sex, and only 3 of that 75 was involving BDSM. Those who are into BDSM are just as psychologically healthy, if not healthier, as people with more traditional sexual interests. Sex and Psychology 2015. Adults interested in BDSM do not have an increased likelihood of reporting childhood sexual victimization. Sex and Psychology 2015. Activities that lead to extreme pain, ergo cutting, piercing, electric shocks, are quite rare in BDSM. Sex and Psychology 2015. Most people who are into BDSM prefer their sex safe, sane, and consensual. There's like I said, the extreme stuff is not really all that common. Like the stuff that people do is mostly just just the regular stuff. Like, I guess, regular for BDSM. Let me just look at some of these comments here. Yeah. What are your thoughts on pet names for subs? Should they choose them or should they be given? It really depends. My woman has a number of pet names that I use, and some have been agreed upon and some that I just decided this is what I'm calling you. And some of them are derogatory and in a joking way. It's not really meant to cause emotional harm, but I think that you can just choose whatever you want, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't like it, then it's up to you whether it's the sort of thing where you're like, no, this is what I'm calling you, or you're in the type of dynamic where you agree upon these sort of things. But that's what I like a lot about BDSM, is that there are general frameworks, but there's so much flexibility within those frameworks that are dependent upon the individuals that are playing. So there's rules, but there's no rules. But those, they're flexible rules. Okay. So there's just a lot. There's so much to play with. And I even know DOMs that don't even engage in any of like classic BDSM play. Like there's no bondage, there's no sadism, there's no masochism, there's no impact, none of that stuff. It's all verbal and psychological. And that's what I enjoy a lot, because it's the most challenging. It's the most challenging creatively speaking. It challenges my intellect the most. And this is where, you get into double binds. You get into situations where the sub is damned if they do, damned if they don't. I think I told you about this one story where I was in that mood for creating such a scenario, and we're getting ready in the morning, she's getting ready for work and that sort of thing, and I decided to get her all sorts of turned on and wanting sex, really getting into it, which was out of the blue because that's usually not the time, right? So having the potential for sex in like an unexpected time was also arousing, right? Which is like just before going to work. And she really wanted to get fucked. And I said, okay, it's either your ass or nothing. And she had to kind of make a decision like, well, fuck, like, what do I do? I wasn't really thinking about getting fucked in the ass, but I don't want to go to work with blue balls. I want this release. Okay, so that was a scenario that I'm talking about where there's this catch-22 double bind going on. So if you're into that sort of thing, you're into that psychological play of double binds, do some research about how a double bind is constructed and how you lead into double binds to basically put them in a situation where they're fucked, pardon the pun, they're fucked no matter what they do. And so this is where it gets really challenging and creative if you're into that more psychological play. But you can get into double binds physically as well. All right. So say like anal hooks. Okay, if you know what an anal hook is, it's just like this piece of surgical steel usually, or stainless steel, and it's shaped like a big J. Okay, and on the end is either one ball or a series of balls. All right, and this is inserted into the ass, and then the J part kind of goes out and then up their lower back. All right, and then there's a loop. There's like a metal loop on the top of the J, the long part of the J, where you can attach, a chain or a rope or something like that. Then that part is then attached either to their hair or around their mouth, going across their mouth or around their neck. And say they're on their stomach, you have this pulled tight, so their head is pulled back. And if they lower their head, it then pulls the hook up their ass further, which causes some discomfort or pain, depending on how much of a masochist they are. So if they keep the tension off of their ass by keeping their head back, this will then cause strain in the neck. The neck muscles will get tired, so then they have to bring their head down, which then pulls in the ass, which then forces them to pull their head back up. So this is an example of like a physical catch-22, where they're stuck in this limbo situation of, where do I want my discomfort? Do I want muscular discomfort, or do I want anal discomfort? And so that's another example. So there's a lot, like when it comes to double binds, there's so much you can do when it comes to creating compromising situations. And they can be psychological, they can be emotional, they can be situational, they can be physical, they can be sexual, and there's various levels of intensity that you can bring this to. I would just say, make sure it follows within the realm of being safe and consensual. All right. Always maintain safety on top of everything, because if you're not worrying about safety, then you're not being a very good dom. You're not being a very good man. You're not being a very good leader, right? Because caring for, so if there's possession involved, like, you are my sub, you belong to me, and they're like on their knees, like, yes, I belong to you. You are my sir. I love you. You are my master. That sort of thing. Men care about the things they own. So an indication that you might be a good dom, okay, like let's say you're just kind of getting into this sort of thing. Do you give a shit about the things in your life? All right, like, do you keep your shoes clean, right? Or do you just kind of like throw them in a pile? All right, do you fold your clothes? Do you hang them up nice? You just kind of keep them in a pile on the chair, whether they're clean or dirty. Okay, do you have a car or a motorcycle? Do you let it fall apart, or do you maintain it? Do you keep it clean? Do you keep things tidy? All right, like, so if your world around you and the things you already own that are just inanimate objects are cared for and maintained, you probably have a decent foundation basics for maintaining a sub. Because if they have a very submissive mind, they would get off on, like, emotionally from the idea of being owned and cared for. And so if you already have this inclination of being one who's a caretaker, who knows how to maintain and knows how to lead and care for their objects, when they become one of those objects, so to speak, they too will be cared for and maintained. And this is from an emotional perspective, a psychological perspective, and a physical perspective. So Then you take that and you bring it into the complex dynamics that can happen in your relationship, and things can get very interesting, and you'll probably have a lot of success if you're that type of guy. If you're very sloppy, if you're very messy, if you're very disorganized, I would say learn how to clean up the way you engage with life first before you bring in a sub, before you bring in a woman, because there's a higher chance of letting things fall through the cracks. Okay, if you're a lazy individual, like, this might not be the right lifestyle for you. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you cannot engage in kink. Okay, because DS, dominance and submission, is different than kink, right? And I explained this when I was with Miles. He interviewed me and we were just talking about the Dominance Academy, and I had to bring that to light, that like, you can be into spanking and not be into dominance and submission. You just like spanking. Okay, so that's like saying I like fishing, but it doesn't mean I want to become a fisherman and like live the life of a fisherman. I like motorcycles. That doesn't mean I want to become a licensed MotoGP racer and make that part of my life. Okay, I just like bikes. It's like, it's not that serious. It's not that deep. As my kids would say, it's not that deep, Dad. So it's not that deep. Like, if you just like spanking, you like little, choking, right? You like tickle torture, fine. Like, that's fine. And you can still be a messy, disorganized guy, but you like spanking and you like choking, like whatever, right? But just because you like that stuff doesn't necessarily mean you're cut out for being a dom. All right. A dominant mindset is about, organization, prioritization, tracking things, monitoring things, having a growth mindset, right? Because you're trying to make the best out of you. You're making the best out of your woman, making the best out of your relationship, and looking at where things are kind of slipping and faltering in all three of those areas, and doing your best to elevate them. Now, it's like, you can't just say, oh, I want to elevate it. There's a process. There's a process to elevation in anything. You want to make a machine work better, you have to look at where the faulty parts are, what things need to be upgraded, what needs to be maintained, what's falling apart, and change these things, and then monitor how those changes affect the overall functioning. If you want to get stronger in the gym, you have to look at what you're doing with an analytical mind and start testing things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. It takes time, right? It takes time to make a little adjustment. Sit back and wait a couple of weeks to see if there's an effect that you enjoy. If it's not working, it's not doing anything, or it's having a negative effect, then you have to go back, change it to something else, and then wait and watch. Like, it's a long process. And, we're dealing with human behavior here. There's a lot of variables. So it's not like she's just standing there waiting for your instructions, waiting for you to come up with something good and then see what happens. It's not that simple, right? Because what if her mom just suddenly gets sick and is in the hospital? That changes everything. Let's say she gets promotion. That changes everything. Because we're dealing with emotions and perception and beliefs and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so it's not just like, okay, she's locked in, she's my sub, she listens to my commands, and now I'm on easy street and I just say and she does. No, because that's just not how the human psyche works. So you have to learn how to teach. You have to understand learning models. You have to learn about behavior modification. You have to understand what it would mean if these things were to be implemented and if your goals were actually to come to fruition. Okay, how long it takes for a certain behavior to take hold to the point where you don't have to maintain it anymore. It maintains itself because it's now a newly ingrained behavior. So there's a lot to this. And these are some of the things that you'll learn in the Dominance Academy. Whether you take a video course or if you want to, take one of the courses that involves calls and coaching and documents. So there's a lot of options. You can check that out at dominanceacademy.com. So there, I wanted to bring this stuff up so that people have a greater understanding about how complex this is. And if it's a turnoff for you, that's fine. That's totally fine. You're just like, you know what? I would just want to beat some women's asses and make them red and make women come. That is totally fine. That's absolutely fine. If that's all your desire is, you just want to have sexual fun, totally fine. I'm into it, right? I know a lot of people who are just into kink, and that's it, okay? But that's not BDSM. All right, BDSM is a lifestyle, it's a mindset, it's a way of being. And you don't have to do it. You absolutely don't have to do it if you're not into it, okay? So I'm in support of just people living in their truth. If you're just a regular dude and you want to whip some asses every once in a while and have pet names and have funky outfits, by all means, go do it. Like, that's what your truth is, go for it, all right? And be open to growth, because you might find that as you go along and you learn more and you grow more, you have more experiences, you might come to a greater understanding of yourself instead of saying, no, this is for me. Okay, so don't be that picky eater, all right? Be open to things. You never know what you might discover about yourself, and then you're like, holy shit, I've been living the last 20 some odd years as a partial truth of myself or a complete lie, okay? I tell you, when I came out of the closet, so to speak, and I wasn't hiding this part of myself, a huge burden was lifted from my shoulders. I mean, I don't know how it's got to be, like, say, like for like a gay guy or a lesbian to come out of the closet in their way, and because I'm sure that relief from their shoulders is a lot greater. But I sensed a big relief within my own experience, where I was able to come and to terms with myself, okay, because it was something that I kind of kept hidden to some of my clients, and I sort of gingerly approached the topic when they got into a situation in their relationships through coaching where there was like a clear dynamic established. It was no longer this democratic nonsense, and it was like, okay, my woman is now comfortable in her position, I'm comfortable in my position. Then I'm like, okay, so do you want to take this any further? How do you feel about spanking? Have you ever used a cane before? Have you ever thought about tying up your woman, right? I would like that bridging. I was a little reluctant to get into that bridging because I was afraid of that judgment. And until I embraced this part of myself and said, you know what, this is who I am. Because the clients that did say, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's take our relationship to the next level. Tell me more. That's when this light turned on inside me and I felt ignited. And I was like, holy shit, this is what I need to be doing. And so that's when I had to come to terms and said, Justin, you have to just open up about this and just allow people to either accept you or not accept you. And those that do, they're fine. Those that don't, they either just stay confused because they're too afraid to ask questions, or they just ignored me. And like, hey, that's okay. Nothing in life is permanent. No friends, no family, not even your own life. Like, everything is impermanent. So, but I'll tell you, once accepting it privately and accepting it publicly, things have been a lot better, a lot smoother. And so I bring that up, my own personal story, to share with you guys, because I think that if it's in you, then you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid to let this aspect of yourself out. And I don't give a shit if you're a dude and you have fantasies about being tied up and being pegged. I don't give a shit. Like, that's your business, right? That's not my business, okay? And I'm not going to judge anyone who has that, right? Because at first, I didn't like being judged. I didn't like being judged. You're like, dude, you like to tie women up and like make them cry and like beg for freedom and like slobber coming out of their mouth and all this shit? So yeah, I do. Like, you sick fuck. And then that got me to do like research. Like, am I a sick fuck? I mean, nothing traumatic happened in my childhood. I didn't like abuse small animals. Like, I don't know. It's just an interest of mine. I don't understand. So that led me to doing research, like scientific research that's been done on BDSM. And I came to understanding that people are no more or less traumatized in BDSM and non-BDSM. So there's tons of traumatized people in, say, like the vanilla world, and there's plenty of traumatized people in the BDSM world. And there's people who seek therapy and don't seek therapy. The thing is, though, is that what I noticed is that people who they're grounded and they're of an open mind within the BDSM culture, is they tend to not be afraid of examining their shit. They have no problem examining their shit. They do not sweep things under the rug, right? They pull up the rug and say, oh, what's all this shit? Let's talk about it. Let me discover more. Let me unearth these things, because I'm going to die soon. While I'm living, I want to be free. I want to be free of my own prison. And there's many ways to free yourself of your own prison. I particularly like BDSM as a method of that. Okay, I've lived many different ways that have great tools for setting yourself free. This one tends to be a lot of fun because I like sex, I like toys, I like orgasms, I like exploration. So to me, this is another one of these great avenues. I was actually talking with a client earlier today, and he's of Indian descent. And so he has a lot of knowledge of like Hinduism and Buddhism and things like that. And we were just kind of loosely joking around about how there's like great correlation between deeper aspects of BDSM and Eastern thought, because we challenge our notions of attachment. We challenge our notions of desire. We challenge our notions of what's perceived right and wrong. We are on a pathway to discovering truth, even if it means a painful hit to our ego. And the BDSM is just a lot of fun, because you're dealing with like dicks and pussies and assholes and mouths and whips and leather outfits and all kinds of fun stuff. So what'd you say here, Kevin? I think a lot of people have questions but are apprehensive to ask. But one thing I'm learning, whether it's a female I meet on field, pet life, etc., there's no real wrong question to ask. Yeah, there really isn't. And if you're cool about it, okay, you're not creepy, okay, or thirsty, which you will learn, because within, say, like FetLife, there's people are on high alert, because yes, there are some really fucked up people in the BDSM culture, just like there's some really fucked up people in the vanilla world, right? You're gonna find fucked up people on both sides, okay? They're just more obvious, I think, in the BDSM world, where you can tell, like, oh yeah, that guy's or that lady's like really fucked up. Whereas like, in the vanilla world, they'll hide it under social pretenses and looks and things like that. But so yes, if they're cool, people are very open to questions and talking about it, because that's what we do. We often talk about our preferences. We talk about our boundaries. We talk about the things that we've done in the past. We talk about things that have been done to us in the past, both good and bad. So it's, a lot of people especially like those who are experienced, they've been in a long time and they've got a bit of wisdom, they're usually quite open to talk about just about anything. Kevin says here again, a lot of times you'll find women being turned on by your boldness to talk about these things. Yeah. So I think I heard Miles yesterday talk about this, and about openness and because like a lot of girls, like I was mentioning before, they will be reluctant to talk about their desires and their fantasies because they've learned from other dudes, from their judgment, to keep your mouth shut. They're like, I'm not going to say anything because the last guy that I told that I loved to fucking put vegetables up my ass, he freaked out and judged me and made me feel like shit. So you know what? I'm not going to talk about anything that I'm into, and I'm only going to talk about what's socially acceptable. I'll just maintain this like good girl thing and let him believe what he wants to believe. And that leads to really unsatisfying situations. Okay. If you take the lead in your conversations and you present what you're into without coming across like this is what I want to do to you. Okay, this is more just what I'm into, right? And there's many ways you can go about this. Then you have a higher potential. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying you have a higher potential for allowing her to at least feel comfortable talking about her interests. All right. Now, it helps if you've got strong level of desire, you've got strong level of interest, perhaps you've already had sex. And so there's certain level of comfortability already with each other's bodies, with how each other talks and things like that. And you've been able to get into her head a little bit to massage that little pussy between her ears where she's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more open. If you want to learn more about that, that can be accessed through my program as well. However, taking that leadership role after you've had at least a certain amount of comfort, that sexual comfort, with each other, that's when you can start leading the way and expressing what you're into. I have like this checklist, okay, and I've given it to a number of my clients. I've used it before in the past, and it's just this huge list. And if you've already sexually active with a person, you're comfortable with each other to a certain degree, you can bring this up, so you can email me. I'll just, there's no charge for it. I'll just send you guys this checklist. It's pretty cool. And you can go through it together and just listen. You can check it off. You can make a game out of it. You make it like a never have I ever, or whatever those games are. Or you can just go through it and talk to each other, have a glass of wine, and just go through the list. And there's a lot of shit on there, probably a lot of things you never even thought of that either you didn't know and now you're like, I'd be interested in trying that, and maybe she would have the same reaction, or you discover that she's done certain things, and it can lead to all kinds of conversations. And if you mention a certain something and she lights up a little bit, you're like, you've done, oh yeah, I've done that. Like, oh yeah, tell me about that. Right? And it's like, actually, I did too. You give a little story, which then gives her permission to tell her little story. And if you're not one of those dumb fucks who's, intimidated by a woman having a sexual past or having certain sexual experiences, you're going to get to hear all kinds of awesome stories. I love hearing about people's sexual adventures. It's just cool because you don't hear them all the time. You hear all kinds of regular life stuff. I want to hear the fucked up weird shit, the fun things you've done in the bedroom or otherwise. All right. I love hearing that stuff. Yes, and once they see you're being judgmental about it, they'll shut down, and you'll never get the fulfillment you may have gotten. And you know what, Kevin? It might shut down forever with you. Like if they get a sense that you're judgmental, you may never get that opportunity ever again. That door might be shut forever to you. So be very careful, guys, if you're talking about sex, and it can be even something that's read on your face. You might have like this micro expression when, she's like, yeah, like this one time I was like fantasizing, I was masturbating, and I was fantasizing about getting fisted in the ass. And if you have like just a micro expression or something flashes across your eyes and she picks that up as judgment, that door has been shut. And then it's like, oh no, I was just like, it's just something I like thought about that one time because like, a friend said something or I saw it in a movie or whatever. But I would never do something like that. That's gross. And then you'll never hear about anything ever again. Ever. So just be mindful of your internal workings when it comes to sex. And it's like, yeah, that might be fucked up, but the greater lesson is now another pathway has opened for you, right? Because the game's just about you. Why are you that way? Why are you judgmental? Why are you why do like certain things like make you feel uncomfortable? Like why would so it leads down, if you're able to have a frank conversation with yourself, it can lead you down towards pathways of discovery of yourself. And that's what this is all about. That's what anything in life is all about, is anything you engage in. Okay, it's a means of a pathway to discovery of who you are, of who you actually are. And the things that get in the way are your attachments, your judgments, your fears, right? and sometimes your desires. These things will stand in the way of you actually getting to know who you are and what you're about. But once you get more in tune with that, you start challenging those things, challenging your insecurities, challenging your fears, challenging your judgments, challenging your beliefs, and sometimes challenging your desires. This can lead you to a greater understanding of who you are. And how that affects things in your life is immeasurable. And when you're in front of a woman, she can sense this stuff. It's kind of like in the same way that, like, they say, like, dogs can smell fear. Women can smell uncertainty because they're built for it. They're genetically built for it through ages and ages of conditioning, of survival of the human race. So it's still within them. It's like their hind brain, and we all have hind brains, okay? I forget what part of the brain that's called. If somebody knows it, you can put it in the limbic system. That's what it is. So the limbic system is where, our hind brain or our bird brain or lizard brain, where, whatever people want to call it, but it's really your limbic system. Your limbic system does not know that it's 2024 at all. It still operates on very general premises that when you see somebody, is like, is that a threat? Can I fuck it? Can I eat it? Should I run away from it, or should I fight it? Like, that's really like what happens, and it happens within milliseconds of you seeing all kinds of stimuli, okay? Especially when it comes to other people. So when a woman interacts with a man, she has a millisecond judgment coming from her limbic system of, is this person a threat or is he secure? Do I feel safe around him, or do I feel fearful? Do I want to have sex with him, or am I turned off by him? These are not conscious thoughts. These are things that are happening within under a second in the limbic system, and then that travels up the consciousness into, a more and more refined thought to, ooh, I think this guy is cute. Maybe I should give him my number or whatever. But what happens before even conscious thought happens is this limbic system firing off of, like, is this a threat? Is it something to eat? Is this something I can fuck? Or is this something I should run away from? Is this something I should fight? And that's what's really happening. And so, like I said, there's no knowledge of that, or that part of the brain doesn't have any knowledge of it being 2024. So we still have that hind brain, that caveman mind operating all the time, right? As like a background app, okay? And so she will feel that uncertainty, and part of that is measuring uncertainty. And if you are feeling uncertain to her, it will come off. It will come off. And you might be thinking you're so good at hiding it. But I'm telling you, women have generations and generations and generations of evolution to smell this out, because it's part of the human survival mechanism. It's part of the reason why we're here still as a species, is that because they have such a highly tuned sense for uncertainty within males. So don't get your panties in a bunch if women are being judgmental of men that they don't feel certain about. Okay, that's a good thing. I mean, as far as like the human race is concerned, right? It's part of the reason why we're still here and we haven't eradicated ourselves, because they can smell that on men. Unfortunately, these days, guys have become better and better and better at hiding this sort of thing, and then women get they get wrapped in, and then they slowly discover, or eventually discover, that he is not who he says he is or thinks he is, right? He might have some Dunning-Kruger going on. Dunning-Kruger is an effect where, in the mind, where someone thinks they're greater and more important or more skilled than they actually are, and they truly believe it. And I think we've all come across somebody who's like that. They think they're the fucking best fucking basketball player on the court, but they really fucking suck, right? I've come across artists who are like this in my past. They think they're the fucking cat's pajamas, but they suck ass. But their ego is so great that, like, if you brought this to their attention, they would try to fight you over it. So you're like, you know what? I'm just going to let you rest in your delusion, and you have a fine day. I'm just going to distance myself from you. And I'm sure we've all come across somebody who's like that, at least once. So guys have become better at masking this, either through delusion or deception, and it fools women. But eventually, that truth happens. Truth always shows itself eventually, always. And so, and then their sense of smell, it's always active, and they'll sense that uncertainty, and they will back away from you. Or if they're a little bit devious themselves, they'll realize that you ain't shit, and they'll just use you. So it depends on like the type of woman, how much time they have on their hands, what they want to do. Most women will not use a guy. They'll just distance themselves. They'll just check out, or they'll charge you to the game. All right, and that's better. That's like the better path of the two, obviously. So just know that the more you know yourself, the greater you are comfortable within yourself, or the more comfortable you are with yourself, the greater chance that she will have at feeling comfortable in your presence as well. Because she'll just get the idea like, oh damn, this guy's just so relaxed. He doesn't really need my presence. He's not like after me in any kind of way. He's not trying to pull information from me. He's not trying to get at me. He's not trying to, I can get a sense he's not trying to fuck me, but I do get a sense that he's like just sexually confident, sexually comfortable. And that comes through the knowledge about your own sexuality, what you like and what you don't like, and accepting it and being very comfortable in standing on that square and not being like so hungry for it. Because the minute she smells that you're hungry or thirsty for anything that she has, that's going to start off the beginnings of that unsettled feeling, that uncertainty, right? Because that's emotion, okay? Men are stillness. We are stillness. Action is more unpredictable. All right. Now I say, yes, men should take action. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like just an overall vibe, a central energy, state. Okay. Stillness is what breeds comfort, confidence, and reliability. Okay. So if she can sense that stillness in you, that you're not perturbed by anything she says or does, that you're just cool no matter what the fuck she does, and not in a dismissive sort of way, okay? Like she's a piece of shit and like, why would you be bothered by her because she's just a worthless piece of shit? That's not what I'm talking about, okay? That's actually being resistant, right? That's in a state of resistance. Stillness is neither. It's not in a state of resistance or grasping. It just is. And it's like, this is where, if you're open to it through the path of manhood, no matter which way you take it, whether it's a religious thing, BDSM, or whatever the fuck it is, okay? You take it to deeper levels of self-discovery, the more and more still you become, because you come to understand, I am it. I am he. I am. And that's it, just I am. And the more comfortable you are with that, the more still you become. And then it just happens to be a result that she or other women will be able to feel that comfort and want to be near it, because their minds, their lives are chaotic. They're full of action and variety and variability and ups and downs and ins and outs. Their brains are constantly churning multiple hamster wheels in different directions, right? All over the place. So if there's an opportunity for them to be around someone that allows that to simmer down, okay? And then you provide certain experiences, like what I was talking about when I mentioned spanking with my woman, where you're able to actually take moments and turn that off, where they no longer have to think. And now you've developed a system and a program that's well formulated, backed by a strong constitution, such that now there's more opportunities for more simmering down of that mind, more opportunities to switch the mind off and just follow. Man, that's a happy woman right there. Now you can start increasing certain things where you can bring more happiness, where you can now start creating triggers and anchors where certain actions bring about certain levels of happiness. Where you can say, every time I look at my daddy's dick through his pants, it makes me happy. It makes me horny. The more I touch it, the more horny I get. The hornier I get, the happier I am. And you can create these certain triggers and these certain cycles within her. So now it's like during intimate time, just looking at you can create happiness, calm, and arousal. There's so many layers to this. But if we reverse engineer it all the way back to me talking about this shit, it starts with you. It starts with you being still. Acceptance, growth, going past your ego, doing the work, right? I hate that phrase, but it's not easy, so I guess that's why they call it work. But man, you come into it, and the work never goes away, so it's never easy, okay? But I have to also say that it's less stressful. I don't know, it's like more like accepting and enjoying the work to the point where you don't notice that it's work. But from the outside, if you were to look at it objectively, say, okay, yes, that's work. All right. Kind of like, like one of my clients is a farmer. Like he runs this huge farm. And imagine, he's got cattle. So he probably deals with those giant fucking bales of hay and starting his day at fucking 4:30 in the morning every single day, even if there's 3 feet of snow outside. And he told me this like cold spell that we had, it was 56 below zero. Like 56 below zero. That's crazy. Okay. I think skin freezes at like 60 below zero. All right. So, but he's been doing this so long that like objectively, like say like from my perspective, I look at that and go, that looks like some fucking hard work. But he's been doing it over and over for years and years and years. He doesn't register it as work. Yes, he knows it's hard. Yes, he knows the difference between that and relaxing, but it doesn't hit him in the same way that it would say hit me, because he's conditioned to it, and perhaps he even enjoys it. Okay? Because why would you live a life that you don't enjoy? He's got plenty of money. He could easily stop doing what he's doing and do something else, but this is what he does. He enjoys it. So it's almost like embracing it to the point where it doesn't feel difficult, even though it is objectively work. All right? So I'm going to cut this stream here for now. I don't want to go rambling because I'm going to start getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it's just going to be a completely fucking abstract conversation. People are going to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? So we'll save that sort of stuff for coaching. So if you want to get on some coaching calls, go to the website, thedominanceacademy.com, scroll all the way to the bottom. There's an option there to get call packs there. Really great value. You can get 4 packs, 8 packs, or one-off calls. And then there's the other area where you can join the membership on various levels. And the first one is just videos. And then as you choose different levels to buy into per month, you can add different things. So it adds calls with me. You can get 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls. You get access to documents. You get access to audio materials and all sorts of good stuff. And then of course there's the one-on-one coaching program that you can get with me. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, hit me up on email. It's thedominanceacademy@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram, the Dominance Academy _ and you can just message me there. All right. I thank you for those of you who had come through to the stream. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. And thank you to those who are watching this on the replay. I will catch you on the flip side. Have a great afternoon.